This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
Tired of ads crashing your comedy podcast party? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code LISTEN to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code LISTEN at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com, code LISTEN.
Every January, Burns suppers are held all over the world, whether it's in Calcutta or La Paz. It's a meal in memory of Rabbie Burns, Scotland's bard. It's Shakespeare, a songwriter up there with Lennon and McCartney, and many would say the key to understanding what it is to be Scottish. His fans are legion: Bob Dylan, Maya Angelou, Michael Jackson, Wordsworth. Why does his memory still live, and are those suppers worthy of his genius? I'm Sheila Dillon, and in this edition of the Food Programme, we try to find out. And where else would you begin but in the kitchen?
Here you can hear bubbling away quite rudely, actually, is that brown butter.
Oh, so good.
Just waiting until that becomes nice and nutty, and then I will toss the lovely meats in that as well.
It's a cold January night, and we're with restaurateur and chef Julie Lin in her tenement flat in Glasgow. It's candlelit, warm, stylish, and full of the thank God I'm hungry smells of food being baked and boiled. All in preparation for a Burns supper, one of thousands taking place all over the world this January.
I've got the veggie haggis ready here as well, so just take that out of the casing. It's just gorgeous. You can see all that.
Robert Burns is Scotland's greatest bard and songwriter. The words of Auld Lang Syne are his. His birthday's marked every year in Scotland and across the world with a feast of haggis, more on that later, neeps and tatties, that's a mash of potatoes and turnips, and of course, whisky. Together, they're at the heart of a celebration that since Burns' friends first gathered in 1801 to drink and eat to his memory, has become a key to Scottishness. He died in 1796, and yet here we are in 2024, still feasting in his memory. Why? How? Well, listen on. So, talk us through the menu.
So the menu tonight we have got, I wanted to use Scottish produce, so I got some smoked mackerel and I've mixed that with some creme fraiche, some chives and actually some Granny Smith apple, and then that will go on top of there. It's light and it will mean that we can actually eat the haggis for the second course, which is the most important part. I've got vegetarian haggis and I've also got meat haggis as well. And then for desserts, I've got, of course, you couldn't go without Cranachan. Cranachan is the one and only dessert that you can have for Burns. So I really hope you're hungry.
It sounds wonderfully tasty. Your background is a real mix, isn't it?
So my mum's from Malacca in Malaysia, which is a coastal town. And she is Malay Chinese, actually. So I'm Malay Chinese Scottish, and so a bit of a mix of everywhere. And she loved Burns night, so she also used to cook haggis all the time. Her haggis and pork sausage rolls, she brings them to every party, and it's like the Malaysian woman that comes with these like haggis and pork sausage rolls, and they're delicious. Oh, just on time, they're shown.
Hi Sheila.
Hello, Sean. Sheila.
Sheila, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Sean.
Hi, I'm Max. Nice to meet you.
Well, Julie, this is perfectly amazing. I mean, you've got a Burns supper across two cultures. Do you want to begin and introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the table?
Yes, of course. I'm Julie Lin, and I am a chef and restaurateur. I also do food writing as well, and this is the Burns supper I would normally have for all of my friends. So it's really nice to have you in, Sheila.
Well, it's really nice to be here.
I'm Max Raskin. I am an event host and comedian, and a big fan of Robert Burns.
I am Thomas Small. I work for a PR agency.
I'm Quaich Ann. I'm a poet based in Glasgow. I write a lot about food, and food plays a prominent role in everything that I do. And I'm really excited to be here and to eat with people and talk about poetry, because those are my two favourite things.
And recite some poetry, we hope.
Best thing ever.
Yeah. So we're going to begin our first course, which is...
Yes, I have made everyone some crumpets, because I do adore a crumpet. And I've been trying to use a lot more mackerel in my cooking, so we were just talking about this earlier. Thank you, darling. Oh, did you like it?
Oh, God.
I just love a crumpet. Love a crumpet.
The haggis is coming.
The haggis is coming.
The coming of the haggis. Fair fa your honest, sonsy face, great chieftain of the puddin' race, aboon the ma ye tak your place. Pinch, tripe or therm, weel are ye wordy o a grace as lang's ma erm. The groaning trencher, there ye fill, your herd is like a distant hill, your pen would help to mend.
While Max reads more of the immortal words of Burns' address to a haggis, that great chieftain of the puddin' race, we'll go with producer Nina Pullman to meet the English butcher, recently named as Best Haggis Maker at the World Charcuterie Awards.
So my name is Simon William Broadribb, and I'm run Upton's of Bassett in Southampton with my wife. We've been here 30 years, and hopefully we'll be here another 30 years. So this here is all the ingredients of the haggis. This is the plucks, which is the lungs, the liver, and the hearts, which will just come out of the pot now. They've been cooked.
So can I see you in action then? How does it... So you've got it all laid out.
So let me go and get my have we got a haggis maker on site, please?
All coming right here.
So this is Dominic. He actually made the competition one. We can show you now if you want.
That would be great. So Dom, you're the award-winning haggis maker. Pleasure to meet you.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you too.
Right, so what we're going to do, just going to drain this off. We have to have the right amount of liquid for the oats. And like I said before, I don't think ours is anything special, but we do use the best ingredients we can, you know.
So you'll buy the whole animal and
Yeah.
then kind of use it for different cuts in
Yes.
the shop.
And I like doing that because, like, the beef coming in tomorrow is about a mile up the road. It's from Andy Smith. And then the lambs will come in from a chap called Mr. Man. He's from Salisbury, so he's very caring about his animals. Again, with that lamb comes the offal. So there it is there. It doesn't look particularly appetising, but it will do the time we finish.
It looks like good ingredients.
Yes, but it's good, hearty, stodgy food, you know. I don't want to take, any of the glory away from you, Dom. So do you want to show Nina?
Yeah, I can show how to.
Talk me through it, yeah, step by step.
So the first part you do is you mince the meat with the onions and then the suet.
You can see it's all flaky, and that's what gives the haggis that different texture.
All going in the mincer. Oh, you can really smell it, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Now it smells like haggis, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So Dom only knows half the recipe, so there's two Saturday lads. Dom knows half, and the other Saturday lads know the other half.
Is that deliberate?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's only me that knows the full recipe. What happens next, Dommy?
So next we add the stock, which we got earlier. And then with the stock we also add the secret seasonings I don't know about.
So is it actually secret, or can you remind us again what that was?
No, I am joking. But I have got no secrets in my life whatsoever. I'm very open, and I'll tell anyone what's in it. So those three things there are mace, white pepper, and salt he's just put in. Like I say, there's nothing. That is the three ingredients. And now you go put it in the sausage machine. So traditionally they would use a lamb's stomach as a casing, which is fine, but obviously you really only get one size. With the beef intestine, we can vary the size of the haggis.
So when it comes out, and then you can choose your size.
If you want to make another one a bit bigger, Don, because I've got a feeling there's a kilo one going out this week.
We'll do.
Is that it, Tom? Is that a lot?
Yeah, that's the last one.
Because we won the competition, we honestly just could not keep up.
Oh, I'm so surprised people are eating it outside of Burns night.
Well, it's a good wintry food as well. You know, when it's cold and wet outside and not very nice. You know, to come home to a nice hearty haggis. Is that about right, Tom? The number of pricks I'm putting in there?
Yeah. It's about 3 on each side.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's any better, and especially for me. I tell you the other thing I like with it. I know it's not traditional, but it's like a nice oxtail gravy. Oh, that is heaven. That would be probably one of my last suppers.
And are you having that with the neeps and the tatties?
Yes,
Or just
yes.
mash? Or?
No, neeps and tatties I have. Yeah, and I like that.
Do you think if more people ate haggis or offal, would that be useful for butchers like yourself and farmers that you're working with?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's all about using, it's what we call the fifth quarter. So you've got the 4 quarters of the animal, which is the flesh you sell, and the offal, that you really do struggle with, because if you don't use it, it just gets wasted.
And I'm intrigued, so you've recently won a very prestigious award for something which is famously from Scotland. So how did a butcher from Southampton end up being the world's best haggis maker?
I started with a chap called Adrian Robert McLaughlin, who has deep Scottish roots. We made some haggis, which we thought was pretty good. But like I said, I've never tried anyone else's haggis, only ours. So, and then I got talking to someone, and he or she said, I'm taking one of your haggis up to my granddad, who is a Scottish Grand Master. And in the end, he said, yes, you got it, you nailed it, that's about perfect.
And now it's been recognised in an international competition. How did that feel?
That was amazing. I'm proud, not just for me, but for the shop as well.
Well, make mankind your care and dish them out their bill of fare. All Scotland wants nae skinking ware that jops and luggies. But if you wish her great for prayer, gie her a haggis. Thank you.
Now, everyone, please tuck in. I am very much just, once you're in my house, please help yourself.
I don't think we eat haggis often enough.
No.
No, I really enjoy it.
Definitely.
Well, why don't we value a haggis?
I think there's still a bit of stigma towards what goes into a haggis. And I think, you see all these jokes about catch your local haggis, because I think that is part of it, that people don't quite like the thought of the ingredients in it.
It goes back to the address as well, with the stigma about haggis and it being seen as this rustic food. I think that I do believe there is still, even though we like to think that society's gone beyond those sort of stereotypes, it's there are still elements to that in terms of haggis being seen as this quite working class dish in lots of common places. So the most common place I see it is in chippies.
I actually still think the place that I see it the most on menus is as haggis pakora.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That is genuinely, or a haggis
It's a
supper.
brilliant idea, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it would go.
With the spices and that kind of red onion chutney.
Yes.
It's delicious.
There is always quite a keenness for brands and things in Scotland to want to maybe do something different and maybe bring Burns into the modern day. There definitely is that feeling of pride, I think, around Burns.
For me, growing up, my parents owned a restaurant in the East End of Glasgow, and every year they would have a big Burns Night celebration that went on for the whole week, basically. January was always that time to look forward to and think, everyone's going to be made to feel amazing by this amazing poet's work.
But who was this amazing poet, Robert Rabbie Burns? Well, we went to the Centre for Robert Burns Studies at the University of Glasgow to meet one of the centre's founders.
My name is Gerard Carruthers. I'm Francis Hutchison Professor of Scottish Literature at the University of Glasgow. And in my hand, I have a goblet that once belonged to Robert Burns. It was gifted to the centre. Almost certainly it would hold wine or claret, or perhaps brandy, because these were more commonly drunk in Scotland as opposed to whisky, until Burns tells us that whisky is our national drink. So just as he invents the national dish, to some extent, he invents the national drink.
Gerard, this brings us to the first question. Who was Burns, and why is he, centuries after his death, still this phenomenon?
Well, there's huge Scottish pride in Scotland, which means he's part of the school curriculum. And what that boils down to some extent at its centre, is that Burns, this 18th century poet, and perhaps even greater songwriter than poet, is our national bard, just as England has its Shakespeare. He may be the nearest thing that Scotland has to Lennon and McCartney. It's a slightly cheesy comparison, but the greatest hits are all there. I've mentioned some of them already. Auld Lang Syne, A Red Rose.
But who was he, actually? I mean, what was he more like the Republicans or more of a socialist?
We have to be careful, though, about the image of the peasant, because it's quite clear that his father educates him beyond what one would expect a farmer's son normally to be educated within. In other words, and I'm going to get into trouble here, almost a middle class kind of figure.
I've been looking at your interactive map of Burns night dinners. There's thousands of them all around the world. How did that happen?
It happens gradually. The first Burns supper is in 1801, and it's 9 of his friends, and they have that on the 21st of July, the date that he dies rather than is born. And in 1803, what we get is the first Burns supper on the 25th of January. It's also the case that Burns is transmitted around the world. He's very portable as the Scots take part in the British Empire. He's a reminder of home. But the other side of that politically is that Burns is an inspirer of people seeking Indian independence. Burns is a poet that appeals to Soviet Russia on the one hand, but also Republican Americans. So there's all these different aspects to Burns that make him genuinely a world writer. Conservative estimate, there are 9 million people every year attending Burns suppers. And the engagement there might be the very serious Burnsian, if you like, or it might be someone who's just their pal has got them a ticket for the occasion. But nonetheless, it is genuinely a world calendar event.
And what was eaten at that first dinner, and how has it got to be the haggis and the neeps and tatties now?
Well, the very first Burns supper in 1801, they do have some haggis, and they also have some sheep's heads. Over time, haggis becomes more and more a central feature, a main dish, but not always. And a lot of people, sadly, don't like haggis. So alternatively, very often down to the present, we will get beef or we'll get steak pie. Sheep's head has almost entirely disappeared for some reason. Haggis remains often in Scotland a starter, but sometimes the main course. And Burns would have great fun probably laughing about that, because to a haggis was kind of a joke, although there was a serious point. The serious point was he's writing at a time when people are beginning to artificially whiten breads, and Burns is saying, oh, well, haggis, very simple, very homely, all you need. But at the same time, what he's responding to is a kind of anti-Scottish trope that there's nothing good to eat in Scotland. Even an earlier Scottish poet like William Dunbar in the 16th century, he wrote of the haggis, so it features earlier in Scottish literature, as gallows meat, as stuff not to be reckoned with for the criminal and for the poor. And that notion that, as Samuel Johnson says of oats, a food fit for horses and Scotsmen. So there is this rhetoric which is very prejudicial that the Scots have a very primitive, unappetising culture. And that's what Burns is reacting to. He's saying, actually, it's good, hearty food. Don't sneer at it.
So you've been to a lot of Burns suppers.
I've been to dozens and dozens and dozens of Burns suppers. I will go to probably a few years ago anyway, it might be 2 dozen, and these run from January right through to March on some occasions, yes.
What do you mean, they're not all on January the 25th?
No, because the Burns movement, most of the Burnsians like to go to more than one, so obviously they can't be in 2 places at once, so they'll be, maybe at 5 in January or whatever. But in the line of my professional duties, I've had to eat a lot of haggis and go to a lot of Burns supper.
So you're a bit of a connoisseur.
Thankfully, I love haggis, and I even like vegetarian haggis, which part of me wants not to work, but it does work. It's very tasty, and the reason that it works is because the secret's in the oatmeal and the spices.
What would you say the essence of a great Burns supper is?
Well, supposedly it's about sociability, and I think that usually does happen. So it's that abstract thing of togetherness, of community. The great Burns suppers are where people are spontaneously and genuinely enjoying themselves, and where there's been a bit of thought put into the choice, not only of the menu, but the entertainment. And often the singing is very moving.
It's not altogether coincidental that it's actually in January.
Yes, although Burns is obviously historically accurately born in January, Christmas was seen as a kind of Catholic thing. So we do the 25th of January rather than the 25th of December, historically. It's near enough midwinter, and we all need that period where we indulge ourselves a little bit because the weather's so bad, and Burns Night is certainly part of that festivity.
I don't think I've ever really understood properly, in spite of loving some of those songs especially, who he was and what he means.
Songwriter, poet, creator of great cultural customs. Burns gives a hell of a lot.
Meanwhile, the haggis, roasted neeps and kale, and the mashed potatoes were almost gone, and the whisky bottle was on the table, and it was time for some poetry. First, from Sean Y. Kyung, a poet who makes his living from verse.
Shall I do a poem?
I would love
do a poem,
yeah,
absolutely.
A bit to ask you.
So this is my book, Sikfan Glashgo. The title's in two parts. Sikfan, which is the Cantonese way of saying time to eat, which is what you say before a meal, and Glashgo, which is obviously Glasgow in Gaelic. And so one of the poems in here was very, very much inspired by the address to the haggis, by, firstly, Burns' humour. I think the address to the haggis is a funny poem, and its humour is often forgotten about amongst all the ceremony and grand sort of language. And also its ties to culture and identity in terms of what it means to Scotland to have this food item. And so I was thinking about other kind of food items that maybe people eat a lot of and what that might mean for their culture or their identity. And so I decided to write a poem that's called Greg's. One day, some random person in the queue tells me that what you order is dependent entirely on your personality type. I asked them to explain, so they did. They said a sausage roll means that you're classy, elegant and no-nonsense. A steak bake means you're deep-thinking, complex and warm. A chicken bake means that you're artsy, professional and lucky. A bean and cheese melt means you're fun, kinky and light-hearted. A beef pasty means you're morbid, energetic, but hopeful. A pizza slice means that you always want to be in the middle of it all. A vegan sausage roll means that you're cool, loving and life-affirming. A sandwich means that you're gentle, anxious and trusting. And a salad or a soup means that you're mysterious. And probably untrustworthy. And as I placed my own order, I found myself thinking that maybe this random person was right. I mean, who's to say where exactly it is that these things really do come from?
Yay!
But even that, you know, it's going back to Burns as well, and the idea of how food can be something that connects people and brings everyone together rather than this thing that, oh, I hate this and I hate this. And
yeah, definitely.
And also people around the world would be able to take something like a haggis that people have been eating for decades and centuries, and they can look at it and they can think, I bet that would make a great pakora. And suddenly, the whole culinary landscape changes again.
Will I get us our dessert? I'll read his poem and give us dessert. Will that be nice? Yeah.
Cool,
I'm not going to pass up Cranachan. No.
What is in Cranachan again? I always forget.
Cranachan is toasted oats, usually raspberries, but I've gone for cherries because the raspberries were looking not bonny last time. So I've gone for cherries and I've soaked them in some gula melaka palm sugar and some whiskey, cherries and whiskey. Lovely. I love that flavour combination.
This is really nice.
Very delicious.
So glad you like it. Again, very boozy, so.
Would you like a whiskey, anyone?
I'll have a wee taste.
A wee taste. Thomas?
It is a brown supper after all.
Is anyone here a whiskey expert?
I think you should go Benry.
I'll go Benry.
Cheers with dessert.
Cheers.
It's pretty much a drink anyway. It's lunch.
It just so happened that we did know a whisky expert.
Hello, I'm Ann Miller, the dram queen. I have a background of having spent over 30 years working in the Scotch whisky industry.
What were Burns' own links with the whisky industry?
Well, it does appear that he was enjoying whisky in his early 20s. But later on in life, having been a tenant farmer and so on, he ended up as a customs officer. And in those days, that would have involved riding across the moorlands in all weathers and often at night in order to track down illicit distillers who were doing their damnedest to hide exactly what they were up to.
Well, what's been your experience and involvement in Burns nights? I know that often you were the only woman there. What was that like?
Quite entertaining. I mean, occasionally I was tempted to say, when all the men are wearing kilts, someone has to wear the trousers. I always had a great time at all of these events, and we would have whisky as an aperitif, obviously, and then we would start our meal by piping in a haggis. And it would then be my job to address the haggis and to pour a dram for the piper and for the chef, and we would all drink a toast.
Would you say that Burns is the secret to the commercial success of Scottish whisky?
I think he certainly contributed a great deal to the success of Scotch whisky. I can't say that we could single-handedly give him all the credit. So, you get whisky bottle labels with images of mountains, of heather, of waterfalls, of stags. And Burns features in amongst all of that. He's really done a remarkable job as an ambassador for Scotland and for Scotch whisky, because the two go hand in hand.
So you'd say he still had some cultural significance in Scotland, that he still matters beyond the iconography?
I think so, yes, because I think when local people go to Burns suppers, they are actually celebrating his life and his poetry and his contribution. I can remember at school in England learning some of this as a child, and it mattered to me then, and I think it still does to a lot of people now.
What whisky will you be toasting him in on the 25th?
That's an excellent question. I have quite a wide collection of whiskies now, but I think perhaps a blended whisky, because I think that if you're toasting him and drinking it with haggis, then I think it probably works better with a blended Scotch than a single malt. But I might follow it up with a digestif of one of the local Speyside single malts, definitely.
Ann Miller, the Dram Queen, with thoughts on a dram good enough to toast Scotland and Shakespeare. The 18th century songwriter up there with Lennon and McCartney, national bard and cultural icon. Burns' legacy is one of the most enduring and still evolving food traditions that we have, bringing people together around a table in deep midwinter to share good food, good company, and words that remind us of what matters. Back at the table, it was Max Raskin who took on reading the lyrics of perhaps Burns' greatest song.
Oh, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love is like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. So fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till the seas gang dry. Till the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands o' life shall run. And fare thee weel, my only love, and fare thee weel a while, and I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 mile.
That is just the best. I mean, this entire evening is about crying, right?
Oh, did we get Sheila to cry in my living room?
We need a bit of music for this evening because everybody would sing, wouldn't they? I mean,
I think there's no more famous Robert Burns poem around the world than Auld Lang Syne.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Not long since Hogmanay. Who's going to beat us in then? Okay. Are we ready?
One, two. 1, 2, 3.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of Auld Lang Syne? Hooray for us! Hooray for Rabbie Burns! Thanks for listening. Producer Nina Pullman and I enjoyed our Burns adventures, and we hope you did.
Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcasts? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free news podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
Welcome to your next true crime obsession. Don't miss new BritBox original drama, The Sixth Commandment, which The Guardian calls as immaculate a piece of TV as you will ever see.
You will hear evidence of extreme gaslighting.
Help me, please. I am going to be waiting on you, hand and foot.
Stream this plus the best selection of British true crime series anywhere, only on BritBox. Once you start investigating, you won't be able to turn away. Start streaming today with a free trial at BritBox.com.